Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video we're still working on this little mobile navigation menu for our pretend telephones here. So where we left off, we did a little bit of styling with the main menu items, and then I did a display none on these other phone models so they wouldn't distract us. Just going to focus here on this one phone. I think what I'd like to do is just do a touch more styling changes, not too much. But I would like to rig up a master button up here with a little bit of JavaScript so that when we click it, it'll close or open all of our menus and close them. So instead of controlling each individual phone with their button, since this is a demonstration page, I'll simply have one button that ultimately will lead to controlling all of them. However, it's going to be the same basic technique, and the scripting is not very complicated, so we'll get that figured out. And so let's do a little bit of tweaking. And first, I want to change a couple things about this nav menu. So let me jump over to my CSS, and I'm going to be focusing a little bit more attention on the unique styling for my phone frame 1. However, I'm going to jump up here to some of these generic styles, and instead of a border for my list items, I'm going to change that to an outline. Now, that's not going to mean much to you, and it really doesn't mean much in the long run either, because we're not going to be probably keeping those borders visible to the user as you get towards a final state. However, borders do add to the thickness, the height of these objects, and it was just altering the vertical centering of my text. I'd also like to make these a little bit bigger. Outline doesn't have that same impact, by the way. So minimal impact, and so obviously that problem would have gone away once we got rid of those borders or outlines. Let's see, I would like to make these list items a wee bit taller. How about 56 pixels, which means I'm going to adjust the line height on my anchors. Let's see how that looks. It may not even be that noticeable. And I think I'm auto-saving and refreshing, so just wanted to make those buttons just a little bit taller. Okay, now let's get to it. I think what I want to have happen, obviously, is by default, the menu is going to be hidden away, and then of course the user needs to click the menu button to open it up. That means on the HTML side of things, for phone frame 1, my button needs to start with the word open. Of course, in real life, we're going to want to change this out to a hamburger icon. But if we can change it out with text, you'll see the concept, and then changing it out to an icon should be quite easy for us. Snooze on that. Okay. So text will be easy. Changing it out to an icon later on will be a cinch. Okay, so my button is going to read open. Now back on the styling though, I need to start doing something with this nav menu here. So let's see, I'm going to take my phone frame, and this is just going to be for the first one. Phone frame 1 nav.mm closed. Now I don't have that value yet. Remember, on my phone I've got mm open. I'm going to leave that there, but ultimately I'm going to use JavaScript in order to change the mm open to mm closed. So mm closed, I'm going to have a position absolute. Now this of course is the actual navigation, so I'm manipulating the set of nav tags here, not actually the phone frame itself. I'm going to do a position absolute, and I'm going to do top 60 pixels and left negative 500 pixels. Now why these values? Well, I'm picking top 60 pixels because the header, where is it at? Somewhere up there. There it is. The header is 60 pixels tall. In fact, let me show it to you this way. I'll change this out to mm open. Where do we want this when it's open? I'll start with top 0 and left 0. Okay, save that, head back to the browser, and there we go. We can see that nav menu is right up there at the top, and it's covering up that header. Well, okay, so I'm going to move it downward 60 pixels, and that's looking a little bit better there. Now you notice it doesn't go all the way across anymore, so I might need to put in a width back in there. So let's do that. I'll head up to, you know what, I guess I can go to, phone frame 1. That's good. mobile menu. Let's do this. How about a width of 100%? Yeah, so it just fills it all up. That's pretty nice. Okay, so that's my mobile menu when it's opened. It's positioned absolute. I'm going to go ahead and copy this rule. And I'm going to start off with close. It doesn't matter, but I figure since the menu is starting in a closed state, let's do that one. Everything's going to stay the same except my left positioning. I'm going to move it all the way over. I'll say 600 pixels, okay? Which is definitely going to clear it away. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, how come that didn't change? That's because this is only going to apply if the class of the menu is close. It doesn't read well. Oops, let's try this again. nav.mm closed with a D. Cool. So now let me head over to the HTML. I'm going to change open to closed, which means it's going to follow that styling now, and we see that menu is gone. Perfect. And if I go to my HTML and I change closed to open, we'll see that menu is there. That's exactly what we want to have happen. We want to have the big menu change occur by simply modifying the class of one of the navs. Now it's going to make the JavaScript part even easier. Now before I start, I'm going to go ahead and change this out to closed. Oh, we need a button to activate too. Let's do that. So I will go right to my container up here. Button ID equals my main button. And let's say show hide all mobile nav menus. There we go. Where is that button going to be? Let's see. I'm going to style that button. It's ID main button. It's within my container. Let's see. Okay, container is already positioned relative. That's great. I'll stick this right down here. Main button. Oops. Position absolute. Top 0 pixels from the top. Left, I'll do negative 105 pixels from the left. That's because my button is going to be 100 pixels wide and the height will be 100 pixels. Let's see how that looks. There we go. I'm creating this button right up here. So basically when I click on this button, I want it to activate the nav menu. Cool. Now that we've got that button on there, now back over to the HTML, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of this page after my container div, but before my closing body tag, and this is where my script is going to go. Give myself room to work. And this first one, actually no, I take it back. We'll set up the same function even though we're doing multiple phones here. So now that I've got that main button, I'm going to go ahead and create my script. Document.get element by ID main button, add event listener. Okay, so I've got that main button. It's got an ID, and I'm going to look for it. I'm going to listen for an event. The event in question is going to be a click. That's in quotes, comma. Then I'm going to have a function, empty set of parentheses, and then a set of curly braces. Now, in between the opening and closing curly braces, right after this function, this generic function, I'm going to press my enter key several times to give myself room to work. And at the end of the parentheses, I'll just do a semicolon. So, on my document, I have an element that has an ID. The ID in question is the main button. I'm going to be listening for an event for that button. The event in question, I'm listening for a click. When somebody clicks on that button, they're going to invoke this anonymous function. In between the opening and closing curly braces of that function, it's going to perform a series of tasks. And then there's a closing parentheses for the event listener, and then a closing semicolon just at the end of my JavaScript statement. So within this, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a little comment. And this is just going to be my phone frame 1. So the technique I use here is just going to be for my first phone, but the exact same thing can be applied to the others later on. So what I'm going to do to make things a little bit more straightforward is I'm going to declare a couple of variables. I'm going to let menu1 be equal to document.getElement. Actually, I'll call it nav1 since I'm going to be using the nav tag. Get element by ID. There's no ID on that, so give me a second. Do that and let but1 for button1 equal to document.getElement by ID. And I need a one for that. Okay, I want to find a couple of elements by using their ID. There's several ways you can do this, but I like finding it by the ID. However, my nav and my buttons for frame 1 don't have IDs yet. So let me head up to the HTML. Here we go. So there's my button. I'm going to click ID equals button1. And then for my nav, ID equals mobile nav1. Doesn't really matter there as long as it's a nice unique name. So I have button1 and I have mobile nav1. And I can't remember if I did this before, but let me change. Yeah, no, open is good. I want that text to read open. Okay, so button1 and mobile nav1. Now I can go back to the script. Mobile nav1 and button1. Cool. So now I've got these little variables, which is going to make it easier for me to test for something. And what I'm going to do next is called an if statement or a conditional. If, set a parentheses, set a curly braces. Now, if whatever's in the parentheses is true, then I'm going to do what's in the curly braces. After that curly braces, else, another set of curly braces. If whatever's in the parentheses is true, I'm going to do what's in the curly braces. Otherwise, I'm going to do what's in the else curly braces. And that's actually going to be all I do there, so I can get rid of that extra line space. And that is this will be the end of my event listener and main function. Cool. All right, so what do I want to check to see if it's true? I want to find out if my nav1.class name is equal to, I'm doing 3 equal signs. You could do 2 equal signs if you wanted, but thrice is nice. You can't use 1 equal sign though. So if my class name is equal to mobile menu closed. Yeah, I think that's what we want to do. So if it is equal to mobile menu space closed. Well, if that's my class name when somebody clicks the button, that must mean that I want to change that. I want to change the menu state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my nav1 class name and I'm going to equal 1 equal sign. I'm going to equal to mobile menu open. Oops. Open. Got to make sure I get my quotes in the right spot. So I definitely want to do that. Now the other thing I want to do is nav1. Oh no. Button1 dot inner HTML is going to be equal to close. Now this can be a little confusing, but basically if my mobile menu is set to menu closed, then when somebody clicks the button, the mobile menu class is going to be changed to open and the button text is going to be changed to the word close. That's going to make sense when you see it. Else, what is going to happen? Well, nav1.class name is going to be equal to 1 equal sign mobile menu closed, and button1 inner HTML is going to be equal to open. All right, we're going to test this out and then we'll come back and review what we've got here. But I think that's pretty good. Everything is saved. Back to the browser, refresh, even though I shouldn't need to do that. And here's the test. We click this main button. Cool. So when I click that main button, my menu appeared and my button text changes to the word close. When I click the button again, the button text changes to the word open and the menu skedaddles. I want it to be a smoother transition though. So let's see, back over to the CSS. And this is going to go on my here it is. It's going to go on my mobile menu for my frame 1. It's good with all that stuff. Transition. Now the only thing I'm changing here basically is the left positioning of that menu. So I can put for my transition the word left space. How long do I want it to take? 1s for 1 second, and then I will do ease in out. Okay, so yeah, I think that'll be good. I think that's slow, fast, slow, all over 1 second. So that's saved. Back over to the browser, refresh, click. There it is. Menu slides in, button changes to close, menu slides out, button changes to open. All right, now that we can see that that's working, well, what if I wanted to rig it just to this button? Hey, no problem. In fact, we can do that too. Since that button, where'd it go? Phone frame 1. Since that button has an ID, this would be a piece of cake. Basically, I would just say, instead of looking for my main button, I can look for my button 1. Save it, browser refresh, and now we should be able to click on this button. Brings that menu in, close, gets rid of it, stuff like that. That's going to be super. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. However, I'm going to change this back to main button because my intention is that this one button click is going to control all 3 menus. And to do that, we would simply copy all of this content and nope, not too much there. I would copy from here and then just have a few more of those going on. So we'll do that later though. Let's make sure we can still customize a bit this one phone. I think we're doing pretty darn good though. So on my document, getting an element by its ID, in this case my main button, I'm listening for an event, a click event. When somebody clicks that button, a function is occurring, a no-name function, and then there's a set of curly braces right there which controls all the stuff that's going to happen for this function. I'm going to declare a couple of variables, not essential, but it just makes the next lines a little shorter and easier to write. If the class of the menu is set to closed when somebody clicks, then I'm going to change the class to open, and I'm going to change the button text to close. Otherwise, I'm going to do the opposite of those things. I'm going to change the menu class to closed, and I'm going to change the button text to open. That's the basics right there. All right, now what if instead of having words, I wanted some icons, or I wanted some, like an X or a hamburger icon and stuff like that? That's going to be pretty easy. What I'm going to do, and I'm going to stop my recorder for a quick moment here, is I'm going to hunt for a couple of icons, okay, little PNG files. I want to get the 3-line hamburger icon, and I just want to find a nice simple X. There's multiple ways you can do this. I'm a big fan of Font Awesome. I'm not sure if they have a hamburger icon in their free library, but they may. Font Awesome is great. You could make your own. That's not a bad way to go. You could make your own hamburger icon. My students just recently learned pseudo elements. So you could create a 3-line hamburger icon pretty easy. There's a technique to use gradients to make stripes. You can make a hamburger icon with gradients. That's pretty neat, but I'm going to do it the easy way, I think. So let me pause my recorder and go grab a couple of images. Be right back. Okay, I found something I think could be kind of neat. I got one image that has both the hamburger icon and the X. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rig it so that my button shows part of that image as a background, and then it'll swap over to the other one. So let's give it a shot. Now I've already got that image saved, and let's start to tinker with it here a bit. So I'm going to jump over to my markup. I'm going to look at my HTML real quick. I'm not sure if I'll be using an actual button tag anymore. There's no rule that says it technically has to be a button. It could be a paragraph. It could be a div. In fact, I think I want to show you something else. So let's change this out to a paragraph. And my CSS should be the same because I still have that ID of main button on there, so I shouldn't really notice any big difference. Now I've lost some of the characteristics, but notice I can click. I'm clicking right now on that, and it's still controlling everything. You can click on a paragraph. It's a little weird to look at though, right? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to head over to my CSS, And where's that paragraph at? It's going to be, oh, it's my main button. There it is. There's my main button. Check this out. I'm also going to put a cursor property and change it to a pointer. Let's give it a little bit of a border. 2 pixels, solid, something dark, something very dark. Text align center. So now we're going to have a border, but here's the cursor is going to change to a pointer. So now when I mouse over that, I do get that little hand. So I can, just makes it seem more clicky, more clickable. Okay, now I want to work on button 1 over there. So let's head down to button 1. No rule that says that has to be a button either. In fact, I've never tried putting a background image on a button. I'm kind of curious how it's going to work. So let's leave things as they are. There's ID button 1. Go to the CSS. I don't have any rules there yet, so let's give it a try. Button 1. Now let's see. I think my sizing is probably okay. I can't remember what I have. I think like 50 by 50, something like that. Width and height is 50 by 50. I'm going to stick with that for now. And I'm going to put a background image on there. Let's see. I need to go up one level because I'm in the styles folder. I have to go up. Then I'll go to my images folder, and then I'm going to go to my menu icon. Okay, now I know that image is insanely big. I didn't tell you yet, but that image is like 800 pixels wide, so it's really massive. And I'm going to adjust that quite dramatically. And I think that's pretty good there, but let me go ahead and do a background size of just like 300 pixels. Let's see what happens with that. Okay, now I'm going to dial this all the way down. This is actually going to be smaller than I want, but I just wanted to make sure I could see that button showing up, and sure enough, there it is, and I can see the little hamburger icon right in there. Okay, so now I just need to tweak this a little bit. I think this I need to change background size and background position. When you're doing background position, first number is the horizontal, second number is the vertical. So if I did something like 0px for the horizontal, that's the far left, and if I did 0px for the vertical, that's the top left corner, which is usually what it defaults to. So I don't think I'm going to see any change with that. No change. However, if I took my left measurement and I started to dial this back to like -30 pixels for the x, now things are going to start to move. That may have been a little too dramatic. What if I just did 10? Well, let's try that. Okay, things are looking a little bit better, but still I want that hamburger icon to be bigger. I want it to kind of fill up that space. So I'm going to play around with my background size. Let's try 150. Okay, it's doing a little bit better. I'm going to pause my recorder so you don't have to watch me go back and forth so much, but I'm going to play around with my positioning, X and Y, and the size until I get that hamburger icon to completely fill up my 50 by 50 button. Okay, I think I'm about there. So I think I've got that. So what did I do here? On the HTML side of things, I got rid of the word open in between my button text. So there's no text in between my opening and closing button tags. And on the CSS, excuse me, played around and I found that a background size of 180 and a background position of -30 pixels for the X, -2 pixels for the Y seems pretty darn good. And on this button, I can also go border 0 pixels, and that'll get rid of the border on there. Oh, now you can see more messiness. So I'll leave that border on for a while and maybe take that off once I'm done. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. And of course, when I click my master button, my menu is going to appear, but then I want a couple things to happen. Well, I don't want the word close to appear anymore. Instead, what I want to see is I want to see the X part of this image and not the hamburger icon part of this image. Keep in mind, my original image, hamburger icon is on the left and the X I want to show is on the right. So I'm going to be shifting this background image way far to the left. I don't know if I show you that or this to make it make sense in the camera. So that's what's going on there. So let's give this a try. I'm going to head over to my CSS. To my JavaScript. And I don't need this button text to read closed anymore or to read open. So I don't need that. Instead of close, I want button1 dot style dot, I might have to look up, I can't remember what this JavaScript property is for background position. It's probably, I bet it's this though. I bet it's background position. Lowercase b, uppercase p, I bet that's going to be right. And then that's going to be equal to, and then I need to put in quotes what I want to have. So background position, let's just do a quick experiment. What if I did something big like negative 200 pixels? And I don't want the Y to change at all, so I think I'll leave that at negative 2 pixels. I think that's going to be pretty good. Assuming that is what I want, let me copy that, paste it there, and this one's going to go back to what I know works. Now, what I know works for the hamburger icon is negative 30, negative 2. So in the HTML here, I want negative 30, negative 2. Okay, let's test this out and see. I'm definitely going to have to adjust this 200, I know. That's just an initial test. Click this. Okay. Now, it doesn't look like there was a big shift in my button, so that doesn't mean that I'm way off. It could mean that my image is changing so much, though, that it's cycling on itself because these images tile. So let me dial it back to negative 100. There we go. See, that's pretty darn close. And then I might try something like 105. That's even better. 107. Perfect. There we go. So that's what I want to do here. So now when I click my main button, I'm going to display my mobile menu. There it is, and my menu button changes to an X. Definitely different ways we could play around with that. I guess I'm okay with doing this background image shift. We could change the background image completely if we had two separate image files. No big deal there. You can do some kind of neat little animation if you've got these images set up so you can rig it so that the background image has a transition effect. That'd be kind of neat. But I think I'm pretty satisfied with this. The video's getting a little bit long here. And I think I'm at a position where I can call this first menu done. So what I'll probably end up doing in the next part is I want to do something similar but a little different with these other two menus. And so that way when we're all done, clicking this one master button will change all three menus on our pretend little phones here. So I know this is tricky stuff and there's a lot going on, but thanks for hanging out with me, and catch up in the next video when we finish this phase of the assignment up. And then, of course, I'm going to send you off on your own to do the other part of the assignment where you kind of make your own interpretation of a responsive navigation menu. So using these same techniques, by the way. So talk to you later.